Another PSC Touch Plus spoon-fed Photoshop tutorial. I'm Gavin Steele, and in today's tutorial I'm going to be taking you through how to create a magician's hat in Photoshop. The original tutorial by Abbasi is over at the site psd.touchplus.com. Here's our final image. It's a cool little magician's hat with the magic wand going across the top, and as always all the steps are clearly outlined over at the site, and do check out our videos over in the video section. Let's load up Photoshop and see what we got. So this is what I came up with. It's pretty close, pretty similar. All the steps are pretty clearly laid out, and you should be able to follow along perfectly fine. So that's what we created. I'm just going to move this over and bring in a new canvas. So my canvas is 450 by 450. I'm going to put on my guides. You can see they're in the middle. They should snap to the middle as you bring them down. If they don't, head over to view, make sure you've got snap checked in the view section. I've also cheated a little bit in this tutorial. I've got the original template of one side of our hat, and I'm going to use that as a guide as I create our first layer with the pen tool. So I'm going to click right here, come across to the side, and drag this down. Alt click, come down to the bottom, alt click, and then we can close it off up at the top. Hit Command C or Control C on a PC, Control V to paste, Command T to free transform, right click, flip it horizontally, and then we're just going to move it over to the right, like so. Now we can turn off our template layer underneath, and we should have a shape that looks something similar to what I have here. Let's just rename that body and click on OK. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to add some reflections to our body layer. So duplicate the layer, Command or Control on a PC J, and there we now got a copy of that layer. And what we can do is we can come over to our path selection tool, grab all of those paths, combine, and then I'll turn it into one solid shape. We could have done that with the body layer, but I'm just going to move on for now. And we're going to apply these reflections. So double click on our layer, we're going to do some layer styling, we're going to apply a gradient overlay, and just before I do that, let's bring our fill layer down for this. Gradient overlay, we're going to have that set to normal is fine. Actually, let's change that to screen, and make sure we check reflected and have that checked as well. We're going to reduce it down to 28%, and the colors are going to go from black to a 50%, A4, 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 click on OK, the white's OK, click on OK. Reflected, as I said earlier, the angle is going to be 2 degrees and 50%. Now before you click on OK, let's move this layer style to the right, and I'm just going to bring this gradient over to the right like so. I'm going to click on OK. I'm going to add a layer mask, reveal all. I'm going to grab a black to white gradient and just drag from the bottom up. Like so. It's just going to take away the strength of that down on the bottom down here. So let's just double check, let's go back in there, and let's make sure on our gradient overlay we had it set to screen, 28%, black to the middle color to white. Make sure you check reverse, I knew I'd forgotten something, 2%, 2 degrees and 50%. Again, let's move that over. To somewhere just off middle, click on OK, and I'm going to come back into my gradient here and just drag this up. I'm just taking away this bottom area so it's not such a harsh line and it kind of fades to the bottom of the hat. Okay, now you can call that layer reflection. I'm just going to duplicate it for now, Command J, and then on our new layer we're going to go back in back into gradient overlay. Again, it's going to be on screen, this time 25%. Reflected, yep, checked. This time our angle is going to be -2, and we're going to have 40%. And again, move over to the side, and bring this over. Until we get something. Yep, that looks pretty good, like that. And let's click on OK. Alright, the next thing to do is we're going to add our band. So again, we can create a new layer. Just grab the pen tool. I'm going to use a grey colour for this. And not too far down, but I'd say about here. I'm going to come straight across. In fact, as we come straight across, just going to add a little bend in the middle, like so. I'm going to alt click, come down, come across, again, add that band, alt click, and just finish that off like so. Now we can command click on our body layer, but still on our shape layer, and we can just mask that off like so, and now it fits, but it's a little bit tight. So to fix that, when we've got this selection here from our command click on our body layer, we can come to selection, modify, expand. 1 pixel should be good, and then we can apply that. You can click away, you can see it just comes over 1 pixel, which means it's going to kind of make it look a little bit 3D and like it's wrapping around our hat. Now, on our band layer, we need to apply some layer styles. So let's double click on our band layer. Just turn over my notes. Okay, let's bring that over here so we can see. And we need drop shadow. Set that to normal. Black is fine, 65, 90 degrees, 2 for distance, and 1 for size. We're going to change our contour. I'm going to choose this furthest one on the right. Everything else is fine. Then we're going to apply an inner shadow. Our inner shadow is going to be set to normal. This time we're going to change it to white, 20%. Our angle is going to be 90. Again, 2 and 1. And our contour, we're going to use bottom left. Finally, gradient overlay, set to normal, 100%. I'm going to come in here, and first color is going to be 636688. At 50%, we're going to do A3, A7, CD, and then at 90%, all white. Click on OK, click on OK, and we're going to have it set to reflected, 1 degree, and 40%. Again, we're going to move over to the right. We're going to reverse our colours and then drag over to the right hand side, like so. Click on OK. Alright, once we've done that with our band, the next thing to do is duplicate it. So Command J on a Mac or Control J on a PC, and we're going to right click. Actually, I'm not going to remove all the layer styles. If we double click and just turn off all of these but leave our gradient overlay, we're going to come into our gradient overlay. We're going to set it to linear dodge. We're going to reduce that down to 60. Our colours are going to go all black. And then at 50%, 75, 75. And then at 90 we're going to have white, click on OK, reflective is checked, that's good. -1, and then 27. Like so. Again, we're going to move over to the left hand side. Okay, that looks fine. Click on OK, reduce the fill to 0. Let's go back in, grab our gradient, and I'm just going to bring it over to the left hand side. Like so. Excuse me, like so. Now we're going to work on the top part of our hat, and it's actually going to be the bottom part of the physical hat where our head goes in, but it's the top for this particular illustration. So we need to grab our ellipse tool, Command H, Control H to turn back on my guides, and we're going to create something around the top up here. So I'm going to set it back to black, click in the top, hold down Alt so I'm in the center, and right click, clear my layer styles, and let's just set that to black. Okay, that looks pretty good. I think it probably needed to be a little bit bigger, so Control Z that. Let's come back in, hold down Alt, again clear those layer styles, set it to black, and click on OK. Right, so we've got our top, and I'm going to call it that. Go into the layer styles, and we're going to have a drop shadow, set it to normal, black is fine, 75 is fine, 90 degrees, oops, make sure that fits, 1 and 1, bottom left, that looks pretty good. Gradient overlay, again set that to normal, this time 33, black to white is fine, linear checked, 90 degrees, 150 for our scale, and move to the right. Let's have a look at how that looks, and looks pretty good, and click on OK. Okay, I'm going to duplicate that layer again, so Command J or Control J on a PC. With our copy, we're going to move it below our original top layer. Let's just close that down. And then we're going to move it physically, so V on the keyboard, down 7 pixels. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Let's go in there and change some of those layer styles. We're going to change our inner shadow. Let's turn off our drop shadow. Inner shadow to normal. Black is fine. 60 will do for our opacity. -90 for our angle. And our distance is going to be 2. Size is going to be 2. And that's fine. Gradient overlay we're going to set to normal. 35 is fine. This time white to black, so just reverse that. Reflected, checked, 60 degrees and 50%. Move to the right, always check how that might look. We've got this little shimmer down here. Let's just increase that to 35. That looks a little bit better. Okay, click on OK. Right, now we're going to Command J, duplicate that. So Command J. set the fill to 0, give it a gradient overlay, and inner shadow is the same. Yep, so gradient overlay is set to screen, 28 for our percent, white to black is fine, reflected checked, this time minus 65 and 52%. Okay, so it's over the left hand side, and that's fine, and we can click away. I might just move these over just to the right ever so slightly. So we can come back in, grab the gradient overlay and just move it to the right. This one, we can just move it to the left. And click on OK. Okay, up the top, we're going to grab our ellipse tool again, and we're going to come somewhere in the middle. And I'm just going to drag. We're going to create a new ellipse. Right click, clear those layer styles for now. We just want it to be black. Double click and go back into our layer styles. And we're going to apply an inner shadow set to normal. Black is fine, 80%. And this is going to give us the depth that's going to come down into our hat. So 80% there. And our angle is going to be 90. We're going to have 15 for our distance and 35 for our size. That angle's fine. We're going to give an outer glow, and our outer glow is going to again be set to normal. 10 and 0 for noise. Change this to white. Softer is fine. 0 and then 3 for our size. And oops. We're going to choose this bottom left preset contour. 50 is fine, 0 is fine. Gradient overlay. Again normal, 28 for our percent. And opacity. Black to white is good. Linear checked. 0 for our angle and 85 for percent. Let's move that over to the right. And you can see we've created this little area on the right hand side of this gradient overlay that just implies a little bit of depth. Click on OK and just click away. Let's hide these guides, Command H. And you can see now we've got a little rim and we've got the inside of our hat showing through. So now all the way below top, just here we're going to create a new layer. Okay, we're going to Command click our top layer, oops, this layer here. We're going to move our selection down 2 pixels, like so. We're going to fill it with black. And then we're going to give it a Gaussian blur. Now, actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to select the bottommost copy of our top, move that down a couple of pixels, like so. On our new layer, fill that with black, head up to Filter, Blur, Gaussian Blur, and we're going to set our Gaussian Blur to about 5 pixels. Click on OK. It's going to go over the edge just down here and off to the side, so we can Command click on this, and then we can use that as a layer mask, and that's just going to cut off that shadow so it doesn't go off into this white area, and then we can reduce the opacity down to about 50. We're just creating a tiny little bit of shadow along that edge. Okay, the next thing that we need to do is create a new layer. Bring that all the way down to the bottom. Photoshop's just slowing down on me. Okay, and we're going to create a little bit of reflection down here. So to do that, we're going to grab our ellipse marquee tool. I'm going to bring it up back on my guides just so I can see. Just create I don't want it to be too big. Okay, so just grab a quick ellipse, set the opacity down to about 30, somewhere down there, and fill that with black. Okay, head up to Filter, Blur, Radial Blur. Have that set to about 29 or 27. Zoom, best, that looks pretty good. Now, I'm just going to deselect and apply that again. Okay, that looks pretty good. Again, just lower the opacity just a touch. Okay, and then I'm going to grab our ellipse tool one more time, create a new layer. I'm just trying to get this one just going to move that up. Yeah, I don't want that to command deselect. I'm going to select my body layer and I'm just going to move that selection down just a touch. Then on that new layer we created, again, fill it with black, but this time we're going to go to 50%, so it's a little stronger. Filter blur, this time a Gaussian blur, and about 2.5. Click on OK, and I'm just going to move it up just a touch, just keep it nice and tight. Just reduce it a little bit more. There we go. And there we have our hat. So I'm going to click on my bottom layer, click on my top layer. And we did have a group somewhere, I'm sure, but maybe not. G, and we're going to call that hat. The next thing to do is to create our wand. So I'm just going to turn, well, I'm going to leave it on for now just for scale. And I'm going to create a new layer just to separate these out, and then come over to our rectangle tool, and I want it to go from pretty much the left hand side of my hat over to the right, and it can be pretty thin like so. Then I'm just going to rotate that, turn off my hat layer and bring that down like so. So with our one layer, let's double click. Let's turn off all these layer styles for now. We're going to start with a gradient overlay. We're going to have that set to normal, 100, and we're going to have a couple of colors here. So I'm going to come down, I've got a preset down here of a wand. And you can see we start with black at 3%, then at 15% we have this 616161, and then at 55% we have black, and then at 70% we have DC, 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 and then black again over at 90%. Click on OK. Now we're going to make sure we have it set to linear, it's checked, angle is 0, and 115 for our percent. Let's have a look at that, looks pretty good. Let's turn off our guides. Got a nice little reflective line going down the bottom, which is always great. Now I'm going to Command J, duplicate that layer. Now my hat layer is turned off, but I'm just going to lock it as well so I don't change anything there, and turn that off. Grab my duplicate layer, and I'm going to grab the bottom two down here. Make sure I grab my direct selection tool, and I'm going to bring that down to about there. V on the keyboard, Okay, double click on that new layer. Going to come down to our gradient overlay. Normal's fine, 100's fine. This time, all we need to do is get rid of all of these. And we need to set this to 636685. Click on OK. That's going to come across to here. Position is going to be location is 90, and we're going to choose that color. We're going to set that to F2, F3, and FE. Click on OK and OK. And then make sure you've got it set to reflected in the angle 0 and then 50%. And make sure you reverse that. And I'm just going to drag this just to the right so it just lines up like so. Click on OK, Command J to duplicate it, and then just going to move that all the way down to the bottom like so. Grab those 3 layers. And rotate. Okay, I'm not going to rotate for now. I forgot I need to merge those. But just before we do that, I'm just going to just do some finishing touches to the ends. So let's come in here and let's zoom right in. So this is going to be the top. Going to head over to my pen tool and add an anchor. Going to add that in the middle, and then just drag that up so it's got a rounded tip. Again in the middle, but this time I'm going to move at this point up a little bit, and at this point up a little bit. Make sure I'm on the right tool. Okay, so now I've just got that rounded edge. Going down, in fact, I'm sorry, that probably should have come down. That's better, isn't it? You learn as you do it. And then we're going to come down to the bottom layer. This one's going to be a little more trickier. Okay, again we're going to add these points. And again, we now know that's going to come down. That's going to come down. But the difference is with our bottom we're going to add a little rounded disc area. So add that little middle point. Going to bring it up like so. I'm going to create a new layer with my pen tool and just quickly come round. Right click, make that a selection. And then fill that selection with, excuse me, A9 AC C4 on a new layer. And when you zoom out, that will look just a slight little highlight down there at the bottom. It looks pretty good. Close that group, duplicate the group, get rid of our original, Command E to merge it, turn our hat layer back on, Command T, and there we have it. Oh, it's just a little bit too long, isn't it? Let's just do a little cheat to bring that in. There we go, and we could add some shadow to that. But that's basically the tutorial. So thanks very much to Asher for creating the how to create a magician's hat in Photoshop. I've been Gavin Steele for psd.tutsplus.com, and I hope you enjoyed the tutorial.